Welcome back to another episode of Decoded. My name is Jesse, and I'm the writer, director, and narrator for the last Codex episodes. And guys, we are back with episode 35. I'm always excited about the number. Every episode, I'm always like, wow, that's a big number. And it happens every week. I always forget in the week after, and then bam, it's like, wow, 35. Anyway, guys, we are back with another podcast, and today's an exciting podcast, and I've been suggested to do this podcast by some people for a long time now, and I'll get to the meat and potatoes of it in a second. We're going to do some weekly news. First thing I want to cover, and to those of you who tune into my streams, this is going to sound like a broken audio record, but for those of you who tuned into the story and lore stream the other day, I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was really fun. It was really cool to see two developers, Steve and Taryn, just go head to head and just gush about not only each other and their teams, but about all the challenges and new characters they come up with and the little lore hints they were suggesting. And to all those who were disappointed because you thought it was a Q&A, you monkey, it was never advertised as a Q&A, you animal. The only thing that was suggested as a Q&A is when the announcement said, if you have topics to suggest or questions you would like answered, leave them below. Every other Q&A has said, please submit your questions with the hashtag Q&A or Warcraft QA, whatever. And unfortunately, I will admit, maybe Blizzard should have advertised that a little bit better. This is not a Q&A, but in their defense, it was never advertised as a Q&A. And so to see the absolute, and I'm going to use the word of the day again, toxicity in there was, and someone's going to say, oh, Jesse, it's not toxicity. No, did you see that chat? Go back and watch that Twitch VOD and read the Twitch chat. Holy crap, people are salty about, Blizzard should communicate with us more often. All right, let's do a story and lore stream. This is awful. This is garbage. It was a shit show. Shout out to the people from my Discord and our community who were in there, actually cheering on Steve and Taryn, but also defending them in the shitstorm of a chat. God bless you. God bless you to those people who did that. And for future reference, if there ever is a Q&A or any Q&A, lore stream, anything, I'm hoping you might have noticed Taryn said that this was the first of the lore and story streams. I hope that the absolute shitstorm response doesn't deter them to do more, because maybe the next lore and story stream will actually be a Q&A, or it'll be a different kind of lore and story stream. Either way, no matter if there's a Q&A, a lore story stream, whatever, I always host it on the Lost Codex lore Twitch chat. If you don't want to brave the absolute shitstorm that is the World of Warcraft Twitch community, or just Twitch community in general, but figured might as well highlight the fact that it's the World of Warcraft Twitch community to avoid all that garbageness and stuff like that. So it went well. I think that for those of you who've never seen a BlizzCon panel, it was like BlizzCon light. It was just to see two guys just talk for a good amount of time about their passions. And is that a bad thing, to watch two passionate guys about their job just gush about the story potential and all that? There's nothing wrong with it. It was great. And there's some little lore hints that were dropped in there as well. Now, might be looking too much into it, but at one point during the Q&A, Taryn was talking about some scenes that people hadn't seen yet for Battle for Desire lore. And when he was saying it, he casually pointed or gestured or touched his shirt. For those of you who noticed his shirt, he was wearing the Gnomeregan sigil on his shirt, the icon of technology, the little what's on Mekkatorque's suit, actually in the center of his suit. And we know Mekkatorque's a boss. We know Taryn's a big gnome fan. So is there a Mekkatorque Cinematic coming up? And when I say casual pointing, it wasn't casual pointing at all. So that's going to drop next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. First official gnome, like gnomes front and center since the Broken Shore. That's exciting. New raid and new PvP season is coming out next week. Blizzard put out a whole new blog on what's new and what's changing. Go check it out. There is new PvP gear coming with Season 2. It's going to be recolors of the Darkshore sets. I saw someone on Twitter, I saw many people on Twitter complaining that they're just recolors. The PvP sets are recolored. The recolors of Darkshore. Have you not done PvP for the last 4 fucking expansions? This is not a family-friendly stream. Have you not done PvP at all? PvP sets have always been recolors, with the exception of Mists of Pandaria off the top of my head, and some of the slightly altered sets for Warlords. The PvP sets for Season 1 were Arathi Warfronts recolored. Like, why are people upset about this? I saw someone say, ugh, these sets are already so old. Why can't we have something new? 8.1 came out a month ago, you animal, you monkey. Monkey is another word we're going to be using a lot, because it's a polite way of... Anyways, Warfront gear is going to be recolored throughout the entire expansion cycle. You're going to have Warfronts, you're going to have PvP cycles. I don't know why people are upset. What I'm upset about is the coloration scheme of it. I don't like the gold and the Alliance gold and blue on Night Elf sets. Bleh. Get out of here. I like Night Elf. I like the Alliance gold and blue color scheme. Don't get me wrong. But on Night Elf sets, that just seems... No, stop that. Keep it for the human sets. But that's not what this podcast is about. 8.1 data mining has begun, and I know many people are excited for some, spoilers and stuff like that. That's not what we're going to cover here. I'm not even going to go down like a brief list of the stuff. We'll save that for another podcast. We'll do a data mining podcast because those are fun and easy and all that stuff. Let's dive right into the podcast. We're going to talk about islands today, and the big question is, islands seem to be a very controversial topic. Islands, I can see the appeal and why Blizzard thought, okay, this is it's using the scenario technology, but smart AI technology, randomizing encounters. This seems really cool. But the repetitiveness is definitely, I don't want to say an issue, but it's present. And I hope Blizzard isn't abandoning this concept. I hope that they're actually actively trying to evolve it for future patches. Hell, even the next expansion. How cool would it be is if instead of islands next expansion, let's say it's a space expansion, we go back into space like Outlands or something. And instead of islands, we have world hopping where we hop to different worlds, but only small little continents on those worlds. How cool would that be? Different skyboxes change. That'd be so amazing. So I really hope this technology gets better and the randomization is really vamped up. I would love, and there's no way to do this, but I'm thinking of like old Warcraft or RTS maps where maps can be randomly generated. I know that's not possible in World of Warcraft, but imagine if it was, if the island itself just gets randomly, the volcano island is set, but different buildings can generate in. So there's a volcano island with Mogu ruins, or there's a volcano island that's slightly altered with Jinyu villages on it. I don't know. It'd be cool. But we're not talking about the future of islands. We're talking about the current islands. And I like islands because of all the cool transmog rewards they give. Despite the fact that they're randomized, we're not going to talk about the controversialness of the randomization. They have upped that, thankfully. But what we're going to talk about is the lore of islands. And you're going to say, Jesse, there's no lore of islands. And that is why I tell you, you are wrong. Now, before I actually dive into the lore, I would like to give a massive, massive thank you to the guy who suggested doing islands lore in the first place. We're going to give... Oh, that was very loud. I'm sorry to all those people who are listening to this on audio. Let me turn off the alerts there. Thank you for the 100 bits there, Duologs. We're going to turn that off. Sorry about that. Happy birthday. Thank you. It's not my birthday. But to the guy who suggested this in the first place, one of the moderators of the Lost Codex, Laytis suggested this literally months ago when he started realizing that there was a lot of juicy lore hidden in the islands, hidden in the dialogues, the NPCs, even the weapons they're wielding and the quotes they say, and more importantly, the quest items they drop. Laytis has been suggesting it for a while. And last week, him and Shandryn went to absolute town on a Google Doc to get all of this up and running and organized. So the special thanks to Shandryn and special thanks to Laytis for really A, encouraging me to do this, and B, showing me all the evidence. I've done islands, but not to the extent that Laytis has. Laytis has gone full exploration mode. He has scoured every island from head to toe. So that man knows. I invited him to be on the podcast today. He was supposed to be my co-host, but he said no. So he wasn't rude about it. But I'm going to solo this, and we're going to dive right into... While the island itself has no confirmed written lore, there are variants in its inhabitants on a weekly basis, and the latest writes here that there's some theories and conclusions can be made by the inhabitants it has, and also the design of the island. So we're going to go through all the islands at first. Molten Clay, a volcanic island with a lava-scorched ground cutting through the middle of to the sea, while the rest is forest and jungle. On the east side of the island are some troll ruins. We've got Sandscalp trolls, Faraki and Sandfury, Witherbranch trolls, and ogres. Ungol ruins, a small lush island littered with Hosen-style housing throughout and stone ruins on the side. Hosen, Pygmy, Quillbore. Rottenmire, a shallow island with mounds of land scattered throughout, littered with wrecked ships and bones of various large creatures. A lot of pirates that are shipwrecked there, and Razorfin Jinyu, which will be interesting to talk about after, and our old friends, the Sarok. Whispering Reef, a coastal-style island with murloc structures along the beach, although housing elven ruins further inland. Interesting. And where there are elven ruins, there are always going to be Naga. We've got murlocs, and we've got our lobster boys, Makrura, sorry. Verdant Wilds, heavily forested islands with small ruins scattered within. Keepers of the Grove, feral druids, and furbolgs. When I say feral druids, we don't mean like the spec feral. We mean literally like feral, like they are mindless. We'll get to that after. This is an island of Dreadchain. This is an island of ice and snow with its only... there's a Vrykul and a Cavaldi ritual site being the only landmark on there. I'm trying to think if I actually done Dreadchain. I don't think so. Mogu can be found here. Ice Trolls, the Ice Tusk clan, which I don't know why earlier I was thinking of Ice Mist, Tonka. I was thinking Ice Tusk were Tonka, and I was like, why would the Tonka call themselves? Doesn't matter. Cavaldir can be found on the Dreadchain. Skittering Hollow, a forested and hilled island, although inland opens to a large hollow area and quarry. There's a lot of spiders there. Kobolds, Trogs, and very, very interestingly, living Nerubians. Havenswood, one of the newest islands, an abandoned Gilnean-themed town. Almost all the structures have doors and windows boarded up. Old gods can be found here, old god minions, cultists, feral worgen related to Gilneas, ? And I would like the story on what happened to Havenswood. We know something terrible happened. There's an undead horse that drops from there, but we don't know anything about the undead horse. We don't know really what happened. There's a lot of cultists there, so I would like there to be an answer. It seemed a lot of the Gilneans went out and explored. The earliest Gilnean settlers are the ones who founded Kultiris. We've got Gilnean settling on the Broken Isles, right next to Black Rock Hole. Now we got some on these islands. So they are exploration boys and girls. And then last, but definitely not least, we have Jorindal. The Vrykul letters J is inconsistent, where sometimes they pronounce J as a Y, other times they pronounce it as a J. If it's proper, Viking, it's going to be a Y sound, Jorindal. But then you'll meet an NPC and he's like, "Hi, I'm Jorindal," and it's like, okay, you don't know anything about Vrykul language, so we don't actually know. A Vrykul-themed island with small villages and structures along with Stormheim-like caves. Notably, there's a Valkyr statue near the west side. Can obviously find Vrykul here, we can find Tonka, and we can find undead Vrykul. Now these mobs do pronounce the word Joran, there's a character named Joran or Yoran. I haven't actually seen them, so I don't know what they say when they say "my life for Yoran" or "my life for Joran." That'll be the confirmed way in how to pronounce them. So those are the different islands, and we're gonna talk about now the enemy breakdown and the implications. And some of them are going to be super exciting, and others are going to be just lame, complete lame. And for that I mean like pygmies and they live in islands. There's nothing else to it. Spoilers. Pygmies is over. While many of these inhabitants, the first section includes those that can assault and invade islands as their goal is to seemingly seek out Azeroth. So we'll start with the elementals, and you guys may have been running through islands and suddenly the sky gets all fiery and volcano starts raining down and immediately starts freaking out because now they have to start moving a lot and the volcanoes, which are really annoying. So the elementals, the presence of this Azeroth has ignited the lesser lords, and each seeks to overthrow the current lords and take the plane for themselves. This is a quote from the actual quest item. What blatantly just suggests the elementals are in the midst of their own civil war. As we're in our own world war, the elements are in their own world war as well, which is really interesting because although I haven't done the Shaman Chain from Legion, I know what happens, mostly. And I've kind of wondered, like, you know, everyone's wondering where is the Order Halls in this world war, but specifically, what are the elements up to? What are they doing? Where's Lord Smalderon? Lord Smalderon is Ragnaros' replacement that shamans put into a seat of power in Legion. And Laytis pointed out earlier that the Dark Irons actually note that Smalderon's missing? ? And there's some cultists who are trying to resurrect the core of Ragnaros. On Ragnaros, part of me is kind of like, I kind of hope our old friend comes back, only because, you know, he's a classic villain, right? You know, everyone wants to hear too soon again. But they made a point of saying, you know, the only way to kill him in the Firelands was to kill him in his own realm. So part of me is like, stay dead. The other part of me is like, yeah, come back, buddy. So they're trying to resurrect Ragnaros, and Smalderon's missing. So what does that mean? We just put him into power and he's gone already? Where'd you go, dude? And by we, I mean the shamans. Kind of a thought that came to mind when I was writing this was, is this going to be where Thrall is? Is Thrall once again doing something with the elements? I don't know. I kind of hope we get an answer on Thrall. This is totally unrelated islands soon. Laytis actually brings up in chat here a good point. A lot of people say that Thrall has been cut from the story because Metzen left. That's not true. We know Metzen is very much interested in continuing to voice Thrall. He said it on Twitter. He said it at BlizzCon. He said it multiple times. And apparently, Metzen voiced Imperius in Heroes of the Storm. So new Metzen lines isn't absurd. So Thrall, where are you at? Are you dealing with the elements? Are you in Smalderon on vacation? Where are you at, boy? And does this suggest the return of the Black Empire in some kind of way? You know, we know some elemental lords broke free of the old gods' control. You know, we know we have Neptulon on our side, but is this going to tie into the inevitable Black Empire plotline that's coming full steam ahead to us? Who knows? Here's some interesting quotes from the elements. They see this new element of Azeroth as a sign of elemental rebirth, and it's actually, it says here the lesser lords are now seeking to overthrow the current lords of the elemental plane. So all these little fire lords and water lords and rock lords and wind lords, they're now empowered by this Azeroth, and to the point where they think they can actually do something. With this power, we will retake the world. The golden mineral empowers us. The dawn of the elements is coming. Our time is coming. Laytis has a note here that says, island portals into the room depicted as the reaches of their elemental planes where lords are leading their attack. Water is an underwater cave. Earth is deep home. Fire is firelands. Air is skywall platform above an island. So there's definitely something here. I'd like to think when they told the writers for the Islands team, or rather the quest development team, I bet you there's a lot of red herrings that are being thrown at us, background red herrings, but I think that we could actually maybe point out some future plot lines coming from these. And I'd like to say that the elemental plot line is definitely one of them, especially if we inevitably face N'Zoth or the Black Empire returns, as everyone expects it to be the next expansion. Something big. We haven't seen the elements in a while. Like, aside from the Shaman campaign, the last time they had a big feature was Cataclysm. So I'm kind of excited to see where the elemental plotline goes. This next one is actually very big as well. The Black Dragons. You find a Black Dragon scale, and it's quite pristine. I have a whole bunch of notes here. And this Black Dragon scale is, your character blatantly makes, we should probably bring this to Rathian. But where is Rathian? So you bring it to, for some reason, your character assumes Rathian's in Blackrock Spire. And when you go there, one of Rathian's agents is actually waiting for you. And there's a line that she says to you. She goes, "First in information, have you heard of the Dragon Isles? Few have, and fewer have been there." Now, the Dragon Isles, for those of you who don't know, the Dragon Isles is a very, I'm not going to say it's very important, but it's mentioned back, is it Warcraft 3 it's mentioned? Warcraft 2? Either way, in Warcraft 2, there was a mystery Dragon Isles back in the day. It was on a whole bunch of maps. You could see it in different locations in old games. And you can actually, in the original World of Warcraft map, I believe it was on the alpha map. Anyway, there was an indication that one of the islands was the Dragon Isles. And the quest says here, an utterly pristine Black Dragon scale taken from the dragons you recently encountered. The Black Dragon fleet was completely decimated following Deathwing's demise and Rathian's rise to power. Yet the size indicates a younger dragon. So when you hand it in, she says, "Have you heard of the Dragon Isles? We have not found others of the Master's kin forthcoming in information. Should you uncover anything further in your travels, we will be awaiting a visit with payment in kind." So Rathian is actively searching for the Dragon Isles. Now, I don't think... I don't think Rathian's unable to find the Dragon Isles. I think he's trying to find information about it. Because presumably, you could fly around the ocean and find it, right? It's probably not hard to find. There's probably maps of it out there. So I don't think Rathian's lost. I think he's trying to find out what's the point of the Dragon Isles. Some of the dragon quotes we have here are, "Pitiful flesh creatures, the golden world blood is our ward. We're the Earth Warders, and you take what is not yours, soft skin." Very interesting that these Black Dragons are very dedicated in their original charge. What the Titan Keepers told them to do many years ago. "The world was given to the dragons. Your kind is a disease. You do not know where our clutch resides, so you cannot win. Give up now." All right, so we know there's a Black Dragon clutch out there. Not only are the Black Dragons you're fighting coming from somewhere, cough, cough, the Dragon Isles, but there's more of them. There's more. And are these Black Dragons uncorrupted? Are they like Rathian? "The world belongs to the dragons." Notice how it doesn't say to the Black Dragons, to the dragons. Like, these dragons seem to be, there's no selfish indication. Now, there are other quotes as well, but the other one that I found potentially, leading to the future was, "The Black Flight will be reborn." And I would love if the Black Dragon Flight came back, not as enemies. Black Dragons were something that we fought for far too long. Vanilla WoW, BC, Wrath of Lich King, lots of Cataclysm, and that's it. Basically, like the first half of WoW's life. So it's been a while, and I would love for them to come back as not as enemies, but as friends. I don't think Rathian's going to end up being a friend of ours, but maybe there's, other Black Dragons out there going to help us. So Black Dragons, they're alive and well, and they have a brood somewhere, which, that's exciting. Speaking of dragons, Twilight Dragons are out in force, and these guys, this was interesting. The Twilight Dragons were thought to have been defeated with the fall of Sinestra. How are there so many on the island, and who is leading the flight. When you hand it in Twilight Highlands, you hand it into I believe it's a red dragon in a mortal form. And she says, what are you doing here? Who sent you? And you explain what happens. And she goes, yes, we know. It's those damn stone trogs. Nothing can stop their digging. They dug further and further than we thought was ever possible. What's more, when I really concentrate, I can feel the heartbeat of 1,000 tiny creatures in there. We have no idea how many more eggs remain. So we found out that we learned just from that item alone that there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Twilight Dragon eggs inside Grim Batal, which is scary. Considering they were an enemy threat. They were an enemy faction. What's really interesting here is there's some quotes from the Twilight Dragons that actually imply free will as opposed to being mindless creatures. And they say some of the lines here, let me read them to you. We were never given a chance. We seek only what we were promised so long ago. And now that's kind of vague, but I wonder, was that life? Is that what they were promised? We did not choose our fate. We will not be cast aside again. Which kind of, a little bit makes me feel bad. There's some more villainous lines as well, like the Twilight Flight will reign supreme, sky darkens, we come from darkness to rule the world. Right? There's some questionable. All right, you guys are definitely the baddies, but then there's we rule only ourselves now. We fail once more. We did not choose our fate, which is kind of like, oh, all right. That's kind of sad. So Twilight Dragons, again, I think is going to be entwined with the Black Dragon Flight, but they're also alive and well. Let's move on to, we have a ton of trolls. We've got ice trolls, we've got jungle and forest trolls, we've got Faraki, Sand Fury trolls. Basically, they're just there searching for Azerite. There's not a whole lot of... I was kind of hoping we'd get some information on the Loa of the region or what they're up to. I believe the Ice Tusk or someone mentions that they escaped the Scourge, but then turned to necromancy on their own. So, not a whole lot going on with trolls. Same with Sarok. Sarok are literally just there to search for Azerite. They're more just the brutish enemy faction on the islands. But now we get into something really juicy. We get to the Mantid. Now, what have our Mantid friends been up to? I do recall back in Mist they were talking. There was a very brief mention of the next Empress and how her egg will be protected or something like that. Well, she's hatched. Princess Zara is now Grand Empress Shek Zara. And when you find it's actually really cool. You find a little stone. And the stone description says, the stone vibrates to your touch. The frequency resonates through your body and you feel refreshed. The Mantid likely used these stones to allow them to fly great distances across the sea. To see them on the island was strange. The Mantid took a heavy blow when Shek-Zir was destroyed. They should not be swarming now. The denizens of Pandaria may have more information. So you bring it to Townlong Steps and you hand it to a Pandaren, who seems to be on edge because they're actively fighting the Mantid. And now, keep in mind, when we go to these different places in the world, we're actually going in the past, right? When you go to Pandaria in game right now, you go to past Pandaria, not current Pandaria, how it is today. So the Shah should be mostly cleansed today. But of course, the Shah damage is still there present in game. But what's interesting is with this quest, you can assume that for this single quest only, you are on present day Pandaria. And they are actively fighting the Mantid once more. And he says, our fears are realized. The new Empress has hatched. Princess Zara, no. Now Grand Empress, Shek Zara, is here. She is as hot-headed and impulsive as Mantid queens usually are, and has mobilized most of her forces to search for Azerite. The Mantid are on the move, which is a terrifying concept. I think Mantid were one of the coolest villains in Mists of Pandaria. I loved the Mogu and the Mantid almost equally. The way the sheer numbers you see them in the Dread Wastes was stupid. I remember Dread Waste was the first time I felt threatened in a long time. Going into, even in Cataclysm, there wasn't a lot of zones that I felt threatened and at unease while questing, but Dread Wastes was terrifying. Plus, the music was very unnerving. And some other lines they have here, basic lines like, for the Empress, get the ore to the Empress. Her call is music. I hear her even as I die. The Empress commands me, the golden ore is ours. We are thousands. You cannot stop us. You squash one, but many more are coming. Now they blatantly, as someone in my chat here just said, they blatantly told us straight up in the questing experience, by the way, when the old gods return, we're with them, FYI. And then sure enough, Siege of Orgrimmar came around, and bam. And with this whole Black Empire plotline coming up, are we going to see a return of the Mantid? I loved allying with the Mantid, and I love villain races that we side with. That's really cool to me. I love that concept. I would love to see Mogu, who are allies with the not really the Alliance, I guess the Horde. I would love to see a small group of Mantid elders who would work alongside us, but it doesn't make sense for them to, so I understand. But the Mantid are on the move again. This is important. This is one of the larger plot lines to come from, or at least what I think from Islands, is that the Mantid Empress is actively on the move, and they excuse me, Spalander, typical. That is harmful. I am interrupting the podcast. That is harmful to Slytherins. Twitch chat. That is harmful to Slytherins. You know what? People are more judgmental of Slytherins than Slytherins are of other people. You just keep that in mind. Spalander, you're supposed to be a Hufflepuff. No, I interrupted this podcast. This is now a Slytherin defense podcast. If you're here for Islands, stop listening. We're going to talk about Harry Potter now. But back on track. Black Empire revamp. Are we going to see... Totally derailing here, but I would love to visit time-walking raids that had a theme. I would love if they introduced time-walking Heart of Fear, but the bosses are different. I don't want to fight the Empress. I don't want to fight, but that would involve changing all the interior. I get it'll never happen. But I would love if we could find out some of these plot lines and, you know, find out what's going on in some of these places. I love those solo scenarios when you visit certain places, like especially in Legion when you went to Icecrown Citadel and you got to see, you know, what's going on in Icecrown years later when you went to get your fire mage blade and all that stuff. It's interesting to me that they mentioned so many different factions and enemies and places around the world. And I would just love to absolutely go there, see what's going on. And the Mantid is one of the reasons. I want to see, what is this new Mantid queen doing? What is this Empress Zara doing? What you doing, girl? What are you doing over there in the Dread Waste? Is the Dread Waste healed, by the way? I'm derailing. Anyway, speaking of Pandaria stuff, Mogu. I was kind of hoping the Mogu on the islands would reference Lei Shen in some way in an active attempt to resurrect him. I am Team Lei Shen all the way, because Team Lei Shen. I can't wait till I get to do a lore episode on Lei Shen. Lei Shen was one of the world's most terrifyingly powerful beings. Arthas versus Lei Shen, Arthas wouldn't stand a chance. I would have loved to see an alternate universe of Lei Shen's armies march on Zinajari. Ajara versus Lei Shen? I don't know if our girl could do it, and I am Team Ajara. But fully powered Lei Shen at his height, the dude was imbued literally with the soul of a Titan. Amin-Thul was all up in there. And so, and I've said this before, I'm disappointed that we didn't get to learn of Lei Shen, the Thunder King's story before we fought him in Throne of Thunder. Now we did know his story, but we didn't know how powerful he was until Chronicle came out. And Chronicle absolutely sold him as Azeroth's easily most powerful character. And people have actually commented, Lei Shen's not that powerful. Read Chronicle 1. Lei Shen was taken out only because of a Titan nuke. That was the only way to get rid of Lei Shen, was a Titan nuke. And it's a shame that we didn't get to really see that he was literally a god here on Azeroth back in the day. So I'm hoping for one day Mr. Lei Shen to return. I'm willing to bet that he won't. But on the topic of Mogu, the Mogu clans, several more Mogu clans have awoken, and they're talking about rebuilding their clan. We were here before your kind, and we will be here when you perish. And there's a lot of mention that there's a lot of them. We have thousands of constructs. What can you possibly do? Now, when you hand in a little Mogu device, when you get the drop, you bring it to Cho, and our old buddy Cho says, during the age of 100 kings, the Mogu found necromancy. Powerful Mogu necrolords ruled their tribes from crypts dug deep beneath the surface. Many such crypts remain, unearthed or awoken by the wound in the world. I cannot say which. And there are island portals where you go to Mogu-themed collapsed tombs and crypts, which is actually really, really interesting. Because there are so many Titan vaults and caves and prisons all around the world that we have no knowledge of. And with that, there are many crypts of Mogu around the world and other races we'll get to in a second. And that's exciting to me. And it's really just a simple concept. It's Blizzard's way of saying, oh yeah, here's a new threat that came out of nowhere. But to me, the fact that there are Mogu crypts out there that we haven't discovered, there are other tribes we haven't discovered, that's actually pretty cool. But we're going to move on. There are pirates on the islands, and there are surprisingly no lore with the pirates. They're hunting treasure, yar. And you can hop in a cannon to be fired onto their ship. Exciting stuff when it comes to pirates. There's Naga, and they mention Ajara, obviously. There is a portal with the Naga that you get taken to a fleshy crustacean interior room, similar to the sea beast, the giant, huge, fleshy rooms in Vashtir. But aside from that, there's not a lot to them. I'm going to assume that was to give the spotlight to everyone else, considering that we're literally getting a massive Naga patch in this expansion. Considering there's so much more Naga lore all around Zandalar and Kultiris, I don't think the Naga needed much lore here on the islands. And for your daily dose of creepiness, with the old gods, they drop something called a wriggling mass. Here's what it says. The tendril writhes and pulsates in your hand as your mind is assailed by all manner of vicious thoughts. One vision in particular surfaces in your mind again and again. In your mind's eye, you picture a many-eyed goat laying in a pool of black water. As you approach, its eyes burst open, and in an instant you find yourself looking upwards at the goat from deep within the puddle. As you sink into the icy darkness, everything goes black. You pocket the mass and shake your thoughts from your head. First of all, creepy. Second of all, goat imagery once again. We see the goat imagery in the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron. There's that horrifying quote. You've seen it again, haven't you? The many-eyed goat stares at you from the black forest or something like that. Let me pull up that quote here. Puzzle box, control F. Goat. You have the dream again. A black goat with 7 eyes that watches from the outside. Duh. No. People have wondered if the goat with 7 eyes was a reference to Y'Shaarj. 7 heads, had the spiral horns. There's also the little goat pet that we get in Battle for Azeroth. But a lot of people have speculated that the goat with 7 eyes was the representation of Y'Shaarj. And I'll admit, I liked the idea that the goat with 7 eyes was always a reference to N'Zoth in some way. But when someone pointed out 7 heads of Y'Shaarj, the spiral horns in Y'Shaarj, I was like, all right, that makes sense. But now it's back. That goat is lying in a pool of black water. Now, what does that mean? Well, Y'Shaarj is dead. Dead. Gone. Ripped out of the world like a tick. But his essence was left behind, created the Shah. We know that. A black goat lying in a pool of black liquid. Black liquid? Is that what it says? Black puddle. Black water, sorry. Is that Y'Shaarj lying in a pool of, the blood of Y'Shaarj, you could argue is a metaphor for the Shah that was around Pandaria. There was the actual water that was from the wound in which Y'Shaarj was buried into the ground that was ripped out. That created the Well of Eternity. So, many-eyed goat laying in a pool of black water. As you approach, its eyes burst open, and you find yourself looking upwards at the goat from deep within the puddle. Might be a bit of a stretch, but is this in any way implying the return of our old 7-headed friend? Which is a scary thought. Are we going to fight N'Zoth in this expansion only for Y'Shaarj to return for the next one? Because that would be disastrous. Y'Shaarj was insanely more powerful out of the 4 old gods. That's why Aman'Thul chose him to squish. Ishura points out in chat that the Well of Eternity was described as black in War of the Ancients trilogy. Now, I will counter with War of the Ancients trilogy. A lot of those details likely have been changed over the years, but that's an interesting description, is that it was described as black. Chronicle shows the Well of Eternity being blatantly not black, but there's some interesting parallels to be made there because of the fact that Y'Shaarj sat inside this massive crater within Azeroth and was ripped out. So people say this is not an old god expansion. The way I see this going is this. Another derail. We're going to do some N'Zoth business. We're going to do some Azshara business. I really hope Azshara just kind of screams enough and escapes. I don't want to kill Azshara this expansion. I think she deserves her own expansion. I don't want to kill her in a single patch. That's kind of lame. And I would love if the Battle for Azeroth expansion starts and ends on the faction conflict. The Alliance attacking Silvermoon and the Horde destroying Stormwind again. I would love if Blizzard blindsided it, because we're all expecting the patches. We're going to have to band together, and after we depose Sylvanas, we're going to have to work together to defeat the big old god. I really hope that that's just a mid-expansion plotline, and then at the end, the Horde and Alliance go back at it, and we boom, and then the next expansion is Black Empire 2.0, involving the Shadowlands and all that kind of stuff. So, does this little wriggling mass suggest that this is actually Y'Shaarj and he's not fully gone? Are the Shah? I think the Shah are gone, but what about our friend? Who's the goat? Who's this little goat? What's interesting is the quest giver you bring this to is a former Twilight cultist. It says Twilight Hermit. And he stops hearing the whispers when the sword dropped. He survived the explosion in Silithus. We don't know how. And then he tells you he stopped hearing the whispers, and when he predicts that he goes, you saw the goat, didn't you, in the pool of black water? I could tell you what it means. It means that our world is coming to an end, my friend. He's very friendly. He tells you, like, hey, yo, don't kill me. I'm cool. I'm here to atone for my sins. But yeah, we're effed, dude. He says that. And so again, next expansion related stuff. Is all these islands just clues to the next expansion? Who knows? Pirate and Murloc expansion coming up next. You heard it here first. Let's talk about Goblins and the Venture Co. The Venture Company has investors from the Steamweedle Cartel. Now, plotline, you'd be like, who the hell cares? But that's pretty important in Goblin politics. The Steamweedle Cartel is in. There's members of the Steamweedle Cartel secretly investing in the Venture Co. And he assures you, don't worry, it's nothing complicated. There's nothing wrong here, technically. There's a mass-produced flyer that you find that's used to advertise Azeroth hunting. Think of like the old propaganda, and it makes comments to. Let me bring up what I got here. No, that's Mogu. More Mogu. Wriggling mass. Yeah. The pamphlet appears to be a mass-produced flyer advertising an Azerite buying service. You can make out a few faded but colorful phrases like, your fortune awaits in the great seas, and everyone's getting rich, isn't it your time? There's no mention of any dangers involved, of course, but there is information on who to contact at the bottom. So you go to Gadgetzan with this flyer, and you hand it in to a gnome, surprisingly. And he says, are you here about the pamphlet? What's wrong, expecting someone greener? Listen, we've all got to eat, I've got a family at home, and this war's taking all the food away. Not my problem if some amateur adventurers with gold in their eyes gets into a little bit of trouble. That sounds more like your problem. Now, if you're not gonna sell me your Azerite, buzz off. Big G doesn't like when I talk too much. Did I say G? Pretend I didn't. Here, take some of my Azerite and keep quiet, okay? So, Big G. We know Gallywix is operating in Tanaris in Before the Storm. We know Safi and Grizz are there. So it appears Gallywix is digging his hands into a whole bunch of different ways to get Azerite. And it really makes me wonder, is all of his business plans associated with the Horde? Are we going, and I'm going to say the words, Black Empire expansion, the world gets dark, the hour of twilight falls, Yasharaz rises from the ocean, continents are destroyed, but we gotta take refuge in a giant underground island that's underneath somewhere. Are we gonna go to the goblin city of Undermine? Because that'd be cool. I am pulling strings here, but I want to go so bad. And mention of the Venture Co. and the Steamweedle politics, that's interesting to me. And I would love to go to the Goblin capital just to see how much of a shit show it is. It's going to be like a giant casino with just huge gladiator rings for people to fight in. There's going to be, casinos everywhere. If there's going to be, there's going to be massive ports with boats, and there's going to be huge business districts, and there's going to be thugs beating the crap at each other. And I would love if the Alliance and Horde go there together. I want to see goblins who are like, screw you, Horde, we don't like you. That'd be amazing. Totally unrelated islands, but that's just what I'm thinking. Seeing the full potential of goblin technology and goblin culture inside this massive, the only way to describe it would be a shit show of a cavern, underground port city. Think of like Tortuga like from Pirates of the Caribbean, but with like disco lights and casino neon signs. I don't know. Exciting. To me, anyway. There's some cultists that you can find there. Laytis has some interesting notes here, because I haven't seen the cultists very much, but there's some death-obsessed cultists and necromancers. There's organizational colors of black and sometimes red. Skin tones similar to the Cult of the Damned, with the gray skin and the like the eye markings on the humans, and I think gnomes have that as well. Could be Cult of the Damned remnants. Possibility they aren't. Just a simple cultist skin they decide to use. We've got Vrykul. Now, I mentioned earlier, Jorindal is the island. Well, there's a fleet called the Bloodwake Fleet of 1,000 ships, and it's led by Jorin Bloodwake. The quest item that you handed into, you find his drinking horn, and you bring it back to the talking Vrykul tree up in Stormheim. And he tells you, oh yeah, I know Jorin. He left us a long time ago, has a cool fleet with 1,000,000 ships. It says 1,000. Left Stormheim for a life at sea. He lives to raid, and he never stops in one spot, which makes you wonder, what the hell is Jorindal? What is Jorindal? And at first I thought maybe it's a potential settlement for, the women, children, and workers, retired soldiers who came with him in his fleet. He may not stop in one location, but what if his fleet does? What if the children of those who come with him do? So I don't know. I think it'd be cool if we met Jorin later. I love the idea of Vrykul as an allied race. I accept that it will never happen, but I like that idea. It seems really cool. Possible threat later, if he still lives. Possible ally. That'd be cool if we allied with him. If he just became like a factional ally. I don't know what side he'd join. Maybe he joins the Horde, and then we have the Vrykul from Stormheim join the Alliance. I don't know. That'd be neat. We've got some Tonka that left Northrend. Some of them are enslaving the elements. So not all Tauren descendants are good boys. These cows are bad, like the Dark Shamans. We've got some Feral Worgen. There's very new and little to go off, but the observation follow. Latest notes are as follows. They're very human in Gilnear prior to their transformation. Gender roles are almost non-existent, with the exception of some females using Elune/moon-based abilities. Interesting, but there's not a lot to go off of. While there's tons of Vrykul and Kavaldir and Mantid and Mogu quotes, the Feral Worgen don't have a lot, which is unfortunate. There's an NPC called Ivan the Mad, and he just talks about eating you. Tol'Vir, this is what's exciting. This is like Mogu and Mantid level exciting. The sword has unearthed new Tol'Vir tombs, which again, there are so many vaults underneath the surface that the Titans that Arcadis and the other Titan Keepers built and put their servants into. We know that Uldaman had a bunch of stone dwarves, and then it opened up and they came out and they had flesh. This is happening frequently. We see that many of these vaults are opening up, and new Tol'Vir have come out. Of course, these Tol'Vir don't have the curse of flesh. They are stone boys, as far as I know. And let me bring up some of their quotes right here. It's pretty interesting, because the name of one of the guys is Prince Abari, and he definitely has a stone model. He's got wings and everything. The flesh Tol'Vir actually lose their wings, but the stone ones keep their wings. And the item you find is called a glittering scarab, a magical trinket found on the Tol'Vir spellcaster. It appears to augment their casting abilities. It seems to be very old, but is nearly pristine in form. The Tol'Vir of Uldum may know more about the sudden appearance of the Amathet, which is the name of this Tol'Vir tribe. Now this is where it gets interesting. You bring it to Uldum, you bring it to High Commander Kamzes, and Kamzes says the scarab catches Kamzes' eye. I see you have met the Amathet. The wound in the world has unearthed new tombs. And from there, and from one they emerged. They speak little to us, believing us betrayers of our sacred duties. They believe that they, stewards of the Titans, should control the Azerite. What's worse, when they realized that Raj and the others were slain, the Titan Keepers within the Halls of Origination, they constructed their own new Keepers. They must have an active forge. I will give you what Azerite we have. Be careful. They are dangerous. There's a portal that you can take to go fight them, and it's a Halls of Origination-like tomb. The fact that they are building new Titan Keepers is really interesting. Plot-wise, is scary. And what's even more cooler, is they're not, I mean, they're hostile, you attack them, but they're not evil. They say things like, you are flesh cursed, we will cure you. You are lost, allow us to reorient you. You do not understand. You must be cured of your disease. Your actions bring about the end of your world. We will rebuild again and again. They're pretty polite too. We will re-originate you. Please hold still. We must protect the world's soul. This is not our fate. The Shapers will return. The Shapers left us to care for this world. Stand aside. The planet's blood is ours to oversee. The flesh curse has spread out of control. Our sacred duty must not be interrupted. Our directive will not be changed by you, and our mission must not fail. They are literally the same Titan constructs that all Titan constructs were millennia ago. They are programmed, locked firmly in their ways, in their coding of what they're supposed to do. They're not evil. They're just trying to do their job. Now you could argue, they're trying to cure us of flesh. That is clearly an evil thing. But if that is all they know, that is their prime programming, it's not necessarily bad. They will try to kill you, but it's not necessarily bad. Interesting. I've said this before, and actually Taryn and Steve made a joke about this on the stream the other day, the Q&A, that every expansion, a new type of technology is formed with the Warcraft team, and sometimes they go too ham on it. And back in Cataclysm, there was the cutscene technology, not the cinematics where you see Talanji praying to Razan or Rastakhan versus Zul. These are the in-game cutscenes, with your character. The one in Argus where you walk out and Agrimar falls and you pose heroically. Those ones where you see your character. And so scenes like that were fresh in Cataclysm, and they were everywhere in Uldum. Uldum was just disgusting in the amount of... I can't even think of what these are called. These little Q&As. These little cinematics. Sorry, I'm reading the chat here. Q&A. That was sarcasm for those of you not listening. That was sarcasm. Apparently there was 22 cutscenes in Uldum. Uldum was such a disappointment. Uldum is visually one of the most beautiful zones to this day that they have ever done. Halls of Origination, gorgeous. Love that stuff. Tol'Vir aesthetic, so good. And then you get to the zone, you're like, I am so excited to learn about this pyramid death machine. And instead, you quest with Harrison Jones in literally almost word for word the entire script of the Indiana Jones movie. The beginning was interesting, and then you meet Harrison Jones, and it's literally a meme fest from there. If Blizzard is to ever redo a zone, please redo Uldum, and please give it the lore and the rightful credit that it's due, because I loved the start of Uldum. I hated the rest. It was so bad. And I don't hate Indiana Jones. I don't hate Harrison Jones. I hated the fact that a zone with such rich history and lore and story potential, Deathwing wants a doomsday weapon here. That is big news. But instead, we're going to hang from an airplane as you fly through the air with Indiana Jones and laughing. No, it was bad. It was awful. They butchered the zone. Give me Tol'Vir lore. And so Islands gives me hope for this. We've got some flesh rot undead Vrykul. Not much to go off, but there is a quote that says that states a lack of glory. So, is there an Odin belief there? This is Laytis' notes here. Suggest that they're not completely mind controlled. Even though they're undead, they still believe that there's they're still mournful at the fact there's a lack of glory. So, what does that imply? That ties in right to the next part of the Cavaldir. Now this is exciting. On the Cavaldir, you find something called the Ring of Reefs. For the record, I love the description of these items. I love writing like RPG item descriptions, like when you find like a little bauble or a trinket. I love reading about what it does, how it looks, and stuff like that. And this is one of my favorite examples. It's called the Ring of Reefs, and it says granted to powerful Cavaldir Mistweavers by Helya herself. And the icon is a bunch of 3 little rune stones. A light mist twists and curls around this ring as if caressing it. Holding this object makes you uneasy, deep within your soul. It feels as if invisible, icy hands from the lands of the dead are pulling at you. There is no mistaking Helya's power. The Valajar will want to hear about this. So you go back to our friends over in Stormheim. Another ring? Yes, we've been seeing them more frequently. Valdemar grimaces. Helya is growing in power. What, small one, are you surprised? Do you think she was defeated? Valdemar laughs heartily. You cannot kill death. I thank you for making me laugh today, little friend. Odin has heard about your search for Azeroth. We have gathered what we could. Here, it is yours. So the Valajar are not surprised in the slightest about the ring. Helya is not dead, and for anyone who's been paying attention to all the theories going on about her for Azeroth, Bwonsamdi's boss, Sylvanas' deal, we didn't kill Helya. She's growing in power. There's blatant references to Helya returning her troops to life. We always knew that, but there's things like, I return to her only for a moment. She will bring me back. She will free us from this torment. She will have the golden liquid. You cannot stop us all. We are eternal. Your victory means nothing. Helya calls to you. So, and what's really cool, and I was doing Islands the other day with, I was doing them with Dash and Zuanich, and I was on a voice call with Laytis, and I said, "Oh my god, the boat!" And I didn't realize that the Nagelfogger shows up, just the giant, huge, scary ass ship. So seeing like a blank horizon and then bam, the boat come in actually made me jump, which is really cool. I love that. I love the idea that Helya is not dead too, because in Chronicle 1 she's so hyped up. Her story is so hyped up. We hear about Helya long before Legion comes out, long before, like she was mentioned in Chronicle before Legion comes out. And they rightfully gave Odin and Helya the story they deserved in Chronicle 1, and I wasn't disappointed that we killed her in 7.1.5. I thought, all right, it's kind of a continuation, but I thought all this power and over the Shadowlands and that's it. There's not going to be anything else. So when I found out she was alive, someone mentioned in the chat, there's definitely the questionable of no one gets to die anymore, right? Which is fair. Someone dies, oh, they're actually alive. And some examples that I'll say that I'm okay with people coming back, like Vol'jin coming back, I'm okay with that. In some association with Bwonsamdi, Azaloa, whatever. Helya coming back in some way. Again, giant creature of the Shadowlands in some way. I'm okay with people like that coming back. Varian came back. I feel like Varian's story's gone. So certain characters. And then, of course, there's the Sylvanas rhetoric of, well, I'll just resurrect everyone. And it's like, oh, God. From a story perspective, you could just say, just keep people dead to her because she likes to resurrect everyone. But no, if next time you're doing dungeons, and someone corrected me on it, I called it the Naglfogger. I was actually thinking of Noggenfogger. My mind is still on goblins, okay? The Naglfogger is the goblin version of the undead ship. It's where undead goblins go. That actually makes a lot of sense, considering the Noggenfogger turns you into a skeleton. God, amazing headcanon. The Naglfar, Naglefr? Naglfr? Doesn't matter. FAR? Giant boat shows up at the islands. It's I don't believe you can get onto it in any way, but it's huge and it's there on the island. Go check it out. Really cool. And yeah, Helya's back. Helya, I mean, she's back in some way. We don't have a lot of information on how she's back and what she's doing and where she's, hanging out, but she's back. She's doing something. Let's move on quickly to the apparently actually in the notes here you can actually get onto the boat. There's a portal that leads to Quarters of the Damned. I've never been on it. Now I want to go. This next section includes solely inhabitants of the islands. They don't invade the islands to obtain Azerite. In fact, they're being slaughtered in their homes and villages by the heroes. So these are people who live here that we just come in and murder. And there's some that are funny and there's some that are sad. So pirates, we have one called Shipwrecked Jimmy or Shipless Jimmy, who blames his navigator. He doesn't have a ship and he sees your ship and he tries to kill you and take your ship. So rip Jimmy. Murlocs, not a lot of Murlocs, but there is a little thing of note here. You find a Murloc eye, and you find out when you hand it in to that crazy druid Murloc dude who's really trying to save Murlocs. I don't know why. I believe you go to the High Mountain location he's in. The Murloc eye appears to have no magical properties of its own, but is still quite damp to the touch. You've seen Naga sorcerers using similar objects in their casting rituals, but rarely do they dismember their Murloc slaves for this purpose. This is unsettling, even for Naga. You bring it to the guy, he says, "Oh, hello, are you here to talk about the terrible things happening to Murlocs? I've been hearing tales of terrifying magical experiments happening in the depths. Entire Murloc tribes being wiped out." This is where it gets interesting. "There is one area that they won't even go near anymore. The water bubbles ferociously, and the heat is unbearable. The fish have all fled. Everything has fled. What could be going on there?" Possibly reference to what's coming in the next couple of patches. And, first thing, obviously, steam vents, but there's something more malicious. I don't think... How funny would it be if the Murlocs are spreading tales of secret evil sorcery, of evil magic, and it turns out the Murloc tribe just settled on a steam vent, and the steam vent killed them all, and the Murlocs are very superstitious? That would be amazing. We're all sitting here thinking, oh, is it Old Gods? Is it Ajara? Is it Nazoth? Turns out the Murlocs just settled on a single steam vent, and it went off at the wrong time. So... that would be interesting. And Ishura here in stream chat points out that there is a section on the Nashtar map called the Boiling Terraces. Now, why would the Murlocs rather settle there? That seems dumb on their part. So it seems like it's a new location, but if it is a hint to some of the stuff coming in Nashtar, that's pretty cool. This is where this gets sad. We've got some Nerubians, some spider boys. And they're living Nerubians. They're not undead, scary monster Nerubians. Now, we do have some living Nerubian friends up in Northrend. The 3 or 4 guys outside the dungeon who don't kill us. They give us the quests. You bring him a carapace of one of the Nerubians you kill on this island. And it says, the carapace from the Nerubian lord Voros Arak. It looks ancient. It appears that Voros Arak did not want to shed his shell, and instead wore the same scarred carapace for a very long time. All across the carapace, strange markings have been carved. It seems to be language of some kind. It speaks, and then you hand it into the dude, and he says, the dude, that's his name. It speaks of the swarm lord Voros Arak. He has written of his journeys on his own chitin. He tells of the war. He tells of the war of the spider, of his escape through the tunnels with his brood. Voros was a powerful digger, yet even his great strength flagged, and he was forced to consume much of his own young. Rip his babies. In the end, they found an island, and they survived. Until you arrived. That's it. A survivor of the Nerubian War leaves and settles on the island, and then we kill him. Which is kind of sad. Which I'm trying to think. There aren't a lot of situations where we've met some Nerubians that are living. We've only met terrifyingly dead ones. And I kind of regret, not that we have a choice, there's no way to talk. The story of Battle for Azeroth, we're all dickbags. This is one of the only accounts of a living Nerubian, and we just show up and we just, as Laytis wrote in the notes, we just murder. And yes, by the way, thank you, Rude. I actually had this conversation with Issei on stream, and it started with all the Talbuks on Argus. They were at one point, their names weren't Talbuks, but Chitin. And everyone I asked, I said, how would you pronounce this word? And I was like, oh, it's chitin. Turns out it's chitin. So thank you for correcting me. The original Talbuks were not called chitin books. Awful. They were called chitin books. And the Nerubians, they have chitin, Chitin. Anyway, this Nerubian we kill. So next time you're doing that, remember, this guy survived Arthas and Anubarak. This guy left with his children and ate half of them. And then this guy settled his village, and then we killed them. So, good job, us. But the fact that there's living Nerubians, that's actually really interesting. I have always longed to see Azul Nerub in its full glory. I've always wanted to see how far those tunnels of Ajal go underneath Northrend. And the fact that we were supposed to get a zone of that, and then it was canceled back in Wrath, that makes me so sad. That actually makes me cry inside. It is, but apparently Spellender, it's called chitin. It's pronounced chitin. Kitten. They're called kitten bucks. They've got, the Nerubians have kitten on their backs. A full zone of Ajal Nerub would have been amazing, and I just love I love Nerubians. I love Mantid. I love the Silithid. I love all of those. I love all of those things, and I would love to see. I know we'll never ally with the Mantid. I know we'll never ally with the Kiraji. But I would love if we allied with the Nerubians. That would be cool. That would be cool to see the resurrection of Ajal Nerub come back. Ugh, that'd be cool. Anyway, let's tie this up here. We've got Jinyu. Interestingly enough, some aggressive Jinyu that are on the hunt for Onoho. When you find a spear and you bring it to a Jinyu in Cresarang Wilds, and you talk to the Jinyu there, and he says that this particular Jinyu tribe are unique among Jinyu. Long ago, the elder of the tribe was granted a vision of a great beast. So terrified was that he named it Onoho, or Deep Shadow. They see the island invaders as gifts from the sea. They say, the sea has given it to us. You can't leave. But when you kill them, they acknowledge their death, and a lot of their quotes reference water speaking, like their cousins back on Pandaria. I'll bring up some of the quotes here. Maybe. By the way, the tribe's called the Razorfin tribe. And I did say that they were aggressive. They're not aggressive. They're found on the rotting mire, by the way, the island with all the big skeletons and all that stuff. They reference, they say things like, we regret nothing. We will sharpen our skills as we wait for the sea's guidance. The shallows showed me this fate. So they accept their death when you kill them. The sea swallows us all in the end. The sea brings us new meat and weapons. We thank the waves for this. The hunt will continue without me. So they seem to be pretty standard Jinyu, but just savage in a considering the Jinyu we've met in the past are fairly friendly. We find some Hosen. Not a whole lot about the Hosen, but there is the item you find is a coin, and it says it's stained by the salty air of the Great Sea. You bring it to a Pandaren who is in a fishing village in Jade Forest, who reveals that they're the coins used by the island tribes of Hosen. So apparently they have their own form of currency, who sometimes come to the coast of Pandaria, so they take their boats from these islands to Pandaria to trade. So these Hosen are not mindless. They appear to be, at least open to trade. But again, we show up with our giant ship and cannons, and no wonder they attack us. Tribes constantly move from island to island. They island hop, and when they abandon one village, another Hosen tribe comes in and takes over. And they mention that shinies make us stronger, so they're interested in Azerite. They find Azerite to be empowering, as we know that it is. We've don't really have a lot of quotes. We have one quote. I told Shandryn that I would say this quote. The quote is, "Ow, right in the nibs." I don't know. There's a lot to be taken from there. Who are the nibs? We don't know. We got to move on. Kobolds, as expected, they're found on an island. There's not much to them. Frostbeard the Candlekeeper. These ones like candles too. There are Trogs. Not much to them. Pygmies, as I spoiled earlier, not much to the Pygmies. Feral Druids, something interesting about Feral Druids though. Feral Druid, you find the item you get is a piece of fur, which is a little bit unsettling because they're druids. So that's, that at one point was flesh. And you bring it to someone and they say, the Feral Druid fur hasn't changed form in a long time. It has been in animal form for a long time. And then he goes on to tell you, following the War of the Satyr, there were those among us that thought the pack was the only true way, that we were, at our core, wild creatures, and our humanoid forms were merely a guise. As a flock, they took wing and left us, never to be heard from again. Until now. Very fareless, very mindless. They attack you outright. There's a I believe there's a Moonkin, named Moonsong, who, the note here says, in their dying breath, they seem to come to their senses. So as they're dying, they have a single moment of clarity, and then they die. On the topic of druids, we have Keepers of the Grove, the big centaur deer druids. And in the Keepers of the Grove, we have a sort of seed that we find, and the seed says, remembering the ferocity in which they fought against you makes you suddenly uneasy. Why would these guardians of nature behave this way? Surely someone must have the answers. You bring it to, I believe it's Keeper Remulos, and Remulos says, this route tells me all that I need to know on your voyage. An island teeming with the life spirit, and you met keepers there. I sense you were surprised at their actions. Not all of us that guard the natural world see your kind as allies. There are many of my kind that seek to preserve the balance above all things, even if that means your death. I will not fault you for defending yourself, but I am powerless to subdue them. Now, what I find interesting here is these are keepers of balance well beyond the typical druidism. And Druidism, I'm not going to call Druidism a bunch of hippie magic, but there is a balance in all things. But that balance seems to exclude us in a lot of ways. You know, we have disrupted the balance of a lot of things, and despite that fact, we're always seen as allies, which is fair. We're the heroes, whatever. The Druid characters, Malfurion, Cenarius, BFFs, whatever. These guys don't give a shit. These are no friend of mortals, and they are so insistent on keeping the balance that they flat out attack you, even if you are a druid. And when you kind of going back to the druid thing here, but you could also argue for this as well. When you kill them, the quest dialogue actually says you didn't want to slay them, but they gave you no choice, did they? That's for the feral druids here. So it's kind of interesting. These keepers of life, both the druids and the actual keepers of balance here. I mean, the feral druids just see you as enemies, but the keepers of balance, they see you as disrupting the balance on that island, and to them, that is, you know, you're the force they're going to stop. I'm going to bring up the quote here, and some of the quotes here are: "I must destroy you to preserve the balance that you have broken. I will end your menace before you further corrupt our lands. The cycle will touch you today, invader, and we will grow from your remains. Oh, we are charged with keeping this land and its beasts. You are not welcome here. You cannot kill nature." Can't I? Your kind is out of balance. You cannot be sustained. I must intervene. Your kind is a blight. Says that only to the Horde. Kidding, that's a joke. And then there's some furbolgs, and there's not a whole lot to do with the furbolgs there. There's a chieftain. It's not all that exciting with furbolgs. And what's interesting that I find is there's a lot of hidden lore here today on these islands. There's a lot of stuff that is very subtle, very could this suggest new storylines in the future? I think so. I think that a lot of these little things are taken from, you know, they have a giant spreadsheet of all the things coming in the future, and they're pulling little bits. Like the Keepers, there's nothing there with the Keepers. And actually, I have in my notes there, I would have loved to see some sort of connection to Freya with these Keepers. These original Keepers of Nature, Keepers of Balance, these ones are keeping the old ways with Freya. When Freya walked the world was the Oprah of life, like you get life and you get trees and you get everything. I would have loved if these Keepers were still the followers of her, and there were maybe some avatars of Freya or mention of Freya in some way that kind of predates this modern druidism. You know, this goes back to the original OG druidism. And my dog's barking, apologies. And I would have liked to see some mention of Freya. Not blatantly just see Freya attack us, because, you know, we're on Freya's side, but it would have been cool if they mentioned Freya in their dying breath. You know, they don't give a shit about us. They're concerned with the Titans. I think a lot of these storylines, guys, are definitely going to lead somewhere. They could have just given us the quotes, but they instead gave us not only an achievement, but all these little quest lines, single-handed quests with little bits of lore. And to me, that means something. The most important of those were put into quest form. The return of Helya, the return of the Mantid, the Tol'Vir being reborn, the Mogu being awakening. Those are plot lines that I think are going to be explored in some major way or minor way in the years to come. And I'm really excited for Mogu. I'm really excited for the return of the Mantid, Tol'Vir. So guys, out of all the descriptions below, what would you guys like to see? Leave a comment below or in the Discord, bring it up in one of the channels. What would you guys like to see come from these island lores? Like, what have you seen on the island that really makes you think, what is that going to turn into? I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Let me know. Dragon Isles? Dragon Isles is probably one of the bigger ones. Where is Rathian? Everyone wants to know where Rathian is, and what's he doing on those Dragon Isles. So let me know what you guys think. And again, special shout out to Shandryn and Laytis for all the research, both physically going through the files, but also just the thousands of islands that they have done. I wish that I could say I'm as dedicated to islands as they are. I'm not. And I want to be. So thanks to them for doing all that and catching all the secret things that I missed. And we'll be back next week with episode 36. I don't know the topic yet. We'll figure that out. Today is Wednesday. Today's Wednesday? Wednesday, January 16th. I will be streaming tomorrow on the 17th. So come hang out tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening sometime. And we'll go from there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. This was the Island Lores podcast, and go do islands. Go see what you can find now. Maybe there's some things that haven't been found yet. Apparently the ogres don't have guaranteed drop item. Like no one knows what the ogre rewards are. Go solve that mystery. Let's figure out what they are. Let's go do it. All right, guys. My name is Jesse. Thank you for joining me on episode 36. We're episode 35 of Decoded, and I'll see you guys next time. You thought that was the outro. It's not. Don't close the podcast. We got one more thing to mention. We actually have a little bit of an update on our next project. We're working on the next Lessons of the Loa episode. We'll be announcing what that is coming soon. We haven't announced the topic yet, but that will be coming soon. It is in production. Jeff and several different artists are working on that. And anything else I wanted to mention? If you haven't joined the Discord, click on the link below. Join the Discord. Yeah. And as always, the director's call between Jeff and I for this next project will be going up on Patreon very soon to all the patrons. If you would like to, support us, or you want to see some behind the scenes stuff, check out our patreon.com/thelostcodex. I will never be posting exclusive lore videos or exclusive podcasts that are part of the Decoded series on there. All the videos and sound files that get posted there are just behind the scenes stuff, but no actual lore video or real produced content will be put up on Patreon. It's just behind the scenes for those who would like to back and support us. And again, thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, to all those subscribers on Twitch. If you listen to this on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and you want to see this live, check out twitch.tv/LostCodexLore, where you can find me, Jesse, talking in front of the camera really loudly, and Jeff maybe doing some animations on screen, maybe not, maybe he's doing some mount runs. All right, that's all I got. Episode 35, Islands. We'll see you next time. Definitely we'll see you next time. I don't know what the topic is. I wish I knew what the topic was. We'll figure that out. We'll do it live. All right. See you.